Sharon. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've been doing a little bit of general reading, looking back into the Baroque period, and I had a real light bulb moment, specifically looking into the music of Bach. And I really felt a great affinity, not with the great master himself, of course, but in the social context of the music of the time, particularly in the fact that I realised that for most of the Baroque period, there were no public performances. And you know, when you read things sort of over years and you kind of know, but you don't realise that you know this, and maybe it's just the current situation now that's made me realise that fact, because I'm really missing choir. I'm missing meeting my fellow musicians and that group dynamic of music performance. And I realised that for the Baroque right up until the mid to late Baroque period, there were no public performances. And I thought about it and I thought, goodness, can you imagine those marvellous Brandenburg Concertos? And nobody really could go to see or listen to that music. In fact, I realised as I was reading around that Bach put the whole of the Brandenburg Concertos together as the portfolio, as a bit of a job application. And we don't really know when or whether they all saw the light of day properly. They were given to the Margrave in the hopes of some sort of financial contribution or a job or some sort of security as a musician away from the church for a change. And I don't know if he ever even actually looked at the scores, and even if the Margrave had, the musicians at the time probably weren't up to the job, they wouldn't have been able to perform it, and they probably hadn't got enough musicians anyway. And I suddenly realised that you couldn't just pay, you know, in Mozart's time, you know, you could pay to go to the opera, and it certainly wasn't the highfalutin affair that it is now, although actually it isn't necessarily now. You can go to the opera in your jeans, can't you, if you want to. But I realised that we know, we read so many times that much music was dependent upon patrons, upon royalty. Much of Bach's music was performed in the church. I've been particularly looking at his cantatas, so they would have been sort of a preamble to a particular date in the church calendar and part of the church services there, or they'd have been like for a private royal audience or for a very wealthy small audience. And I realised that even within such massive constraints, such great restriction, somehow his marvellous music lived to tell the tale, really. And much music of that time would have been very domestic. And I realised, and I think it's brought me great comfort actually, to realise that that's our situation now. With lockdown and no public performances and so on, we are back to that Baroque period of it being very much in the domestic sphere. And just that brought me a lot of comfort, really, knowing that we will live to tell the tale and music will live to tell the tale. I know that there's been a meeting with the British Culture Secretary, the conductor Sir Simon Rattle, I think the cellist Sheku Kanamason, the violinist Nicola Benedetti, and I'm not sure who else. I know they've had a Zoom meeting discussing all of their concerns and pointing out musicians' willingness to do whatever it takes to sort of get back to some sort of normality, or at least to have a timeline to know when to aim for. And one thing that was mentioned in the minutes of the meeting that I particularly agree with is their point that musicians, you know, we are creative people and we are agile and resourceful, and we will do whatever it takes, and we will be using those creative pathways to find ways to make this work in these new constraints. And I think we've seen that so much on social media. I mean, how wonderful to hear that great opera singers have stood on the balcony and just given performances. I did hear of one story, I do hope this is fake news, where an opera singer stood on the balcony to give a marvellous aria, and somebody complained about noise pollution. I do hope that really is not true. And then you hear stories of people wheeling out the keyboard onto the balcony of the apartments and all having a sing-song, and so many different recordings, and we're in a much better place in many respects than, say, for example, Bach was in the Baroque period, because we have so much more at our fingertips. You know, so many more people have access to instruments of all sorts. We have the internet where we can at least engage to a degree. However, I do realise that that is not the same as getting together for live music. We had a lovely email from choir and from the conductor saying how much he was missing, and we were all missing getting together. And we've looked into sort of versions of online group performance, and it's just not viable at all because of internet access, lag, timing issues. You know, you see online orchestras, but it's not really live. Somebody has to edit all of those clips together to sort of patch together the different performances. I know that there are talks going on about licensing issues to try and get some music outside in car parks and public spaces, and I just thought, wow, we're going back to the old Victorian bandstand, aren't we, really? Open air music. And I think I just found great comfort looking back over history. I was shocked to realise, well, that I hadn't realised that there were no public performances just for your regular Joe to buy a ticket and go and sit and listen to it. And that seems quite shocking to us now, until it's brought home to us, and like, yeah, we can't do that now either. And I felt a great sense of comfort knowing that music has survived. We are creative, music will survive. And I felt a great reassurance that even under the constraints of the time, financial, geographical, instrumental, you know, all the problems that Bach came across, his music still broke through all of those barriers, and we can now enjoy it today. His genius shone through and managed to still live through those obstacles, really. And I just thought, yeah, things are tough. I am desperately missing meeting together, working together with musicians, live music, groups of musicians together, and so on. But here I am talking to you, and already I feel better about that. And I just think we are creative, we are resourceful, keep playing, keep on pushing through, and history will look back and we will have lived to tell the tale. Thanks for watching. Bye.